Good evening, guys, and welcome back to the Flag Plus Football Junior Division podcast. We're live once again at the Sportero Cage. My name is Brent Buck, and I am joined once again by the main man himself, the Grand Poobah, the founder of Flag Plus Football, Rob Campana.
Hey, Brent, how's it going?
Can't complain, my friend. It's Tuesday night. Again, like I said, we're live at the cage.
Yes, sir.
We're good to go. FBF Junior broadcast is ready to run. So let's hop right into the games really quick. The freshman division, we saw some pretty interesting games this weekend, Rob. We'll start off with the Ducks against the Musketeers.
Yeah, so the Ducks won this one pretty big, Brent. We saw some passing from both Jaden Michel and from Valérien Sirène. They both split the duties at QB. Caden Dewey, 3 touchdowns in this game. The Musketeers seem to be missing a few bodies in this game. They couldn't really get their offense flowing like they had shown in the last few weeks. And as a result, the Ducks prevailed by quite a large margin this week.
Yeah, I got to say, I think it was like the Jaden Michel show. I mean, he had 2 TD passes. He ran for 15 yards. He had a pick 6 as well. I mean, that team, along with the aforementioned Caden Dewey, Valérien
Sirène.
Thank you. Your French is better than mine. Yeah, they're a team. I think they're the class of the freshman division.
So far, it looks like it.
All right, so going on after that, we had the Cougars taking on the Fighting Irish.
So, yeah, this wasn't a very close one, which we hate to see, obviously, especially in the freshman division. Kevin Saris-Payne, who's shown a lot of promise as the young quarterback for the Fighting Irish, had a low completion percentage this game. So things obviously went in the Cougars' favor. They had 3 guys who split some time at quarterback: Jackson Lovig, Tristan Dermody, and Ben Humphreys, all passing for at least 1 touchdown each and 40-plus yards. The Cougars are a really good group. We've seen this, Brent, right? We've seen them play. They're a tackle team that are together playing good group of kids, a lot of good athletes, whereas the Fighting Irish are still getting to know each other. Think about it, we're only like 4 weeks into the season. So that's it. Hopefully we don't see too many more of these blowout wins, but unfortunately the Cougars really ran away with this one this past weekend.
And that's what I say about the Fighting Irish. I mean, the score wasn't how they wanted it to be, but the kids, they have a smile on their face, they're having fun, they're having a good time, and they're learning about the game. So I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and with coaches like Vinny and Phil, they're in good hands, and it's going to come. Hopefully we see them get that win pretty soon, if not this week.
All right, and next up we had the Wolverines taking on the Bruins.
Yeah, that was a great game on Sunday at Hébert. I was actually there to witness this one firsthand, Brent, and it was a good back and forth show. A lot of lead changes, which is nice to see. It was actually a really fun game to watch. There's some clips on our Twitter feed if you go on the Flag Plus, the Twitter section down at the bottom. Will Leclerc, great game. He had 3 touchdowns through the air, 1 on the ground. He also chipped in with 2 interceptions on defense, 1 to seal the game at the very end. Noah Swaminadan, who's the snapper for the team, seems to be building a lot of chemistry from what I've seen with this quarterback. He's really good at running those quick outs both ways. Him and the quarterback, Leclerc, seem to really have found their groove together. And on the other side, the youngster I'll call Tank Van Dommelen, who plays for the Wolverines, who actually had his twin brother coming out to play with him this week, had a really good game, as well as Carter Diabo. They both really were all over the place for the Wolverines, who seem to be short-bodied again this week. But it was a really fun game to watch, and the Bruins prevailed.
Yeah, I got to say the Wolverines, they're a fun team to watch. I mean, they have some of the most interesting names. Tank, there's a couple other kids on that team. Definitely interesting names. And again, they lost 30-21, but I mean, again, they're coming up. They're getting better as a team. Yep. And I think whether you're in the adult league or the kids league, getting better as a team and having fun is what it's all about, I think.
Absolutely. And they have lots of potential at the quarterback position. Tristan Henson is definitely a star in the making at the pivot position. So the more these kids gel, they've had some inconsistencies with their roster so far. But as far as the talent on this team, they're definitely right up there with the top teams in the division.
Yeah, so it'll be definitely interesting to watch as the season goes along and see how better they actually do get.
Yeah.
So going on now to the sophomore division, we had the Hawkeyes taking on the Gators in what looked like a pretty tight affair.
Yeah, it was actually to start the game. Alexandre Blouin was under center for the Hawkeyes after Kalen Trepanier has been pretty much guns a-blazing all season with a new hair color, by the way. Kalen, I should say they're calling him. I believe you told me Blueberry. He's got a blue thing going on, but he's rocking it. It looks cool.
So he went from being the red rifle now
exactly.
to the blue,
I told him.
bomber?
See, I guess the nickname was already obsolete. But yeah, so Alexandre had some trouble early on in the game. He did throw 4 interceptions before Kalen came on, but again, the Hawkeyes defense. This defense is honestly, Brent, you watch them play. These guys are terrific. They really have some playmakers. Jonathan Lebenchen Sharabani, I hope I'm pronouncing that well, is a really strong defensive player, as is Sasha Masikat with 9 tackles in this game, who led all players in FPF Junior this week. Noah Smallwood chipping in with 100 yards receiving. On the other side of the ball, the Gators, really, it was nice to see them move the ball really well. I find Vincenzo Frank, their quarterback, seems to be making strides. He's their coaches, Kevin Cousset and Gab Wiseman, seem to be in his ear about just shorter passes and matriculating the ball downfield, and he's doing a much better job of that because this kid's got all the talent in the world. Unfortunately, there were a lot of drops this week for the Gators, and they weren't able to punch the ball in the red zone. They just kept getting right at the door, knocking at it, and just not able to get in there for the major. So hopefully, but the Gators keep improving, and hopefully they'll turn the corner very soon.
I got to say, give a shout out to Vincenzo Frank. You will definitely end up in my high five in this week's article. Just to recap quickly, he had a TD running the ball. He had 3 picks on defense as well as 5 tackles. So that definitely deserves a spot in the high five.
Absolutely.
And finally, we had the Hurricanes taking on the Seminoles. As you know, I'm an ACC fan.
Yeah.
I'm a Florida State fan. This is college football. That'd be amazing. But even in flat plus football, the feeling is still the same way. I mean, it ended up being a really good game.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, close game. The Hurricanes started the season with Marco Gentile under center as their quarterback. Nick Masella has slowly but surely taken more and more snaps. Talk about a terrific stat line, Brent. Nick Masella, 11 for 12. How's that for completion percentage? 4 touchdown passes. Marco Gentile chipped in with another two touchdown passes in the air, and most importantly, 0 INTs between the two of them. So a really good job. They spread the wealth, which I love to see, and I know you do too. Yep. 19 receptions to 7 different players for the Hurricanes. So really, really impressive and nice to see. As far as the Seminoles go, they moved the ball, they scored some points, but they're still having trouble causing those turnovers. And the thing with the Seminoles is that although they have a lot of good players on the team, they tend to be a smaller team, right? And sometimes we see that in the red zone and even on some deeper plays, they have trouble guarding some of the bigger boys, and just is what it is. It could be difficult when you're, when your opposing player towers over you, but they're going to get it. They have a talented team with smart kids and a great coach in Kevin Wyatt. They'll be okay. And
that's exactly it. You actually took the question right out of my mouth. I was going to say with so many guys, talented kids on the team like Mason Fleming, Dean Fleming, David Ben-Samana, Andrew Backler. I mean, on paper, they are a talented team. But you mentioned dealing with a bit of height issues, I guess. But, I mean, again, it's early in the season. You still have the whole second half to kind of get it together. Yeah. And I definitely still expect big things out of the Seminoles. Yeah, absolutely. And they have some big bodies on their team. Giuliano Longo and Dean Fleming, 2 of the bigger boys on the team, both super athletic kids. So hopefully they can play a bigger and bigger role. And hopefully when we preview their game this week against the Hawkeyes, those 2 boys will be very important in covering the deep ball against them. All right. And to wrap up the sophomore division, we had our first tie of the season. 12-12 with the Buckeyes and the Red Devils. Everybody wins or everybody loses. Depends how you look at it. Great game here, Brent. We spoke about this game last week, previewing it a little bit. And, just take a look at how good and how much quality there is on the defenses of both these teams. Noah Lachance and Trey Bentley both came into this game with extremely high completion percentages, great touchdown to interception ratios. And both of them, you know what, they both struggled. They both faced a really good defense. Noah Lachance threw for 50% completion. Trey Bentley, an unprecedented 41% for him. They both threw 2 interceptions, so it's a credit to both teams as a whole to be able to, more or less, if not shut down, then at very least limit both offenses. That's definitely a good game. Hopefully these 2 teams could lock horn later in the season. Be nice to see them go head-to-head again. And it's nice to see, both teams do have their big-name players that have been, hogging the stat sheet for most of the season. I should give a shout-out to the Sioux brothers, Logan and Adam on the Buckeyes, 2 newbies to FPF Junior. Logan chipped in with a TD reception this week, and his brother Adam with a big INT of Noah Lachance. So definitely something to build on there. All right, next game we have now, switching over to the varsity division. We had the Bulldogs taking on the Longhorns this past Saturday at the Stinger Dome. Yeah, apparently it was a good game, Brent. You were there to see it live. I have to say that just by looking at the statistics of this game, I'm more and more impressed with Longhorns quarterback Sam Crudo. Came into the season, was trying to find his legs under him as a quarterback, but talk about efficiency, short completions. He distributes the ball on offense, which is nice to see, especially in the varsity division where we've seen a lot of quarterbacks focus in specifically on their top guns. Josh Peters, however, his snapper, did have a monster game with 8 receptions for 127 yards. But again,
Sam Crudo takes what the defense gives him. He seems like a very disciplined quarterback, so it's nice to see. And on defense, the Longhorns as a whole, Brent, and it's nice to see not one specific guy standing out. Nick and Jeremy Patry both had an interception, as well as Olivier Gauthier, Nathaniel Peters. So really a group effort. And of course, we can't forget Shea Bentley, 2 sacks, putting pressure on the quarterback all game long. So it was nice to see the Longhorns prevail in this game because it was an all-around effort.
Yeah, speaking of Shea Bentley, I mean, she had 2 sacks. This is her second straight game in a row where she had with 2 sacks. And I think there's a strong parallel to last season, where last season they started 0-3.
Yeah.
The defense was kind of struggling to find. The whole team was actually struggling to find themselves.
Yeah.
And she started to heat up. The whole team started to heat up. And as we know, the rest is history. They went on to win the championship. So we saw the first game of the season, first couple of games of the season, she knew too much. So again, she had 2 sacks last week, 2 sacks this week. The defense played good. They got 4 picks off of Georgia Fantis, the Bulldogs quarterback. So it's going to be interesting to see now whether this is the spark plug, the stepping stone that they need to get them to bigger and better places.
Absolutely. And as far as the Bulldogs go, I mean, obviously we hear a lot about them with both GM Calethris, Paulo De La Rocca, 2 of our colleagues here at FPF coaching the team. This team is absolutely strapped with talent. You know, George Ifantis, like you mentioned, the quarterback. They have a bunch of stud receivers, on offense. They have some great players on defense. But overall, that's what it is. The Longhorns in a team effort really prevailed, and it's nice to see those team efforts come through with a W every once in a while.
And speaking quickly about Samuel Crudo, 3 touchdown passes in the first 2 weeks. His last 2 weeks combined, he's throwing 9. So definitely his game is rising as well.
Absolutely. And from what seemed to be a kid that was going to be a scrambler and run around the lot back there, he ended up with only 1 carry this game and all those passing yards and a great quarterback completion percentage and overall efficiency. So really, shout out to Sam Crudo. Keep it up.
Now switching sides to the Bulldogs. You talk about the receivers. One of them obviously in particular, a friend of the league. He's been part of the FPF family for a long time. Sam El Mashtoub. He had a big game. 4 receptions, 97 yards, 2 TDs. I think if his quarterback was a little bit more accurate, he might have had a couple more touchdowns. So again, he's coming up. He came up big, I should say, for his team. It's going to be interesting to see, though, with the Bulldogs right now. Coming off of a big loss, the record is not what I think they thought it would be. It's going to be interesting to see how they rebound.
Yeah, absolutely. And this varsity division looks like it's going to be tight the whole season through.
And finally, we had the Spartans taking on the class of the varsity divisions and the undefeated Horned Frogs.
Caleb Ferdinand, have yourself a game. 11 receptions, Brent, 114 yards, 2 touchdowns. On defense, 3 INTs and 2 TDs. I hope that makes your top 5, because if that doesn't, I don't know what does.
I may have to change the top 5 to the Caleb Ferdinand
exactly.
list.
Just separately on both sides of the ball, you can make the list separate, completely separate. Giordano Prue, big shout out to the rusher of the Horned Frogs. Quarterback Ryan Garber for the Spartans was actually missing this week, and Adam Marus was filling in. We all know what Adam can do with his legs. Obviously, as a fill-in QB running around back there, it's very important that the rusher neutralizes him as best he can. Adam did put up a decent amount of rushing yards, as you would expect him, but overall, Giordano Prue really did a solid job providing a good rush and helped his defense behind him. And for the Spartans, that's it. Missing your quarterback obviously changes the dynamic of your offense a bit. Adam did step in, distributed the ball well. We saw Jaden Hogan, I believe it was Jeremy Colorendi, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 6 catches, 86 yards.
So some new contributors on offense having big games, which was good to see for the Spartans. We'll see next week when their quarterback comes back and their offense kind of, looks like it actually should on paper, and we'll see if they can kind of turn things around, because there's no reason for them to be struggling. They're a solid team on paper.
Yeah, so hopefully, as you mentioned, they can build off of some of the positive things they did last week.
Absolutely.
So now moving on to outside the box score. Again, as we said last week leading up into the segment, a lot of players grab headlines. Guys like Kid and Dewey, players like Adam Morales. It's nice to also give some attention to some of the players who don't necessarily pile up the stats, but play an equally big part in getting the W for their team. So the first person I want to go with is a member of the Bulldogs. It's Anne-Claude Godbout. She had 2 tackles and 1 pass defended. I'll tell you what, though, I was on the sidelines again doing scorekeeping for that game with the Longhorns against the Bulldogs. She knocked a pass out of the receiver's hands, and her bench just exploded. There's high fives everywhere, a lot of praise, a lot of props being given. That's something I love to see.
And Anne is a true athlete, so it's nice to see her getting her praise here on our show.
After that, I'm going to switch to the freshman division. I'm going to go with Joshua Jean-Jacques. He had an INT, his team, the Ducks, taking on the Musketeers on Saturday, also at the Stinger Dome. He had a big INT. His team was up, I believe it was 12 to nothing at that point of the game. The Musketeers had scored a touchdown, and then they were driving after getting forcing a punt. And JJJ, if you will, Triple J, he came up with a diving interception on a short pass to a receiver that would have went for a big gain. So I want to give my credit to him coming up with a big interception and helping his team get the W.
Good stuff, Brent. 2 good finds outside the box score there, and this is something that we'll continue to offer. I think it's fun because obviously for people missing the game, I missed a few games this week. First thing we do, look at the box score, see who stood out. But obviously being there live in person like you are, Brent, for those 2 games at Loyola, and obviously as the rest of us are for others, we get to really see some players that stand out and make huge plays that don't necessarily translate into statistics. So good stuff, Brent. All right.
So now we're moving on to the Huddle. Again, we introduced this last week. It's about this certain tips, a little bit of advice that we gray heads can give you here at FPF to you kids. One big thing that I noticed, and you notice as well, whether it's in the kids league or in the adult league, is when a player catches the ball, whether it's an interception, whether it's just a natural reception, even when a quarterback runs with the ball or you hand it off to somebody, his teammates or her teammates trying to run around, trying to block somebody. And not necessarily even getting their hands on somebody, but kind of just running to the end zone with that player. I mean, in tackle football, that's great. You want to level anybody that's in your way, trying to pick up a block, or even in rugby, if you will. But obviously here in FPF, the rules are a little bit different.
Yeah, so that's it, Brent. Just keep an eye out for that. We saw it. I saw it often in the Wolverines and Bruins game on Sunday. A few big plays were called back because unfortunately some players, it slipped their mind, and even though their intention wasn't to try to block, they just ran with the play and sometimes interfered with a defender trying to deflag the ball carrier, and it led to a big play being negated. So just try to keep that in mind. I know that coaches continuously remind their players, but again, since Brent and I here have our platform to stand on, we'll do our best to remind you midweek here as well.
That's exactly it. When your team makes a catch, just stand there, look pretty, cheer them on. There you go. Simple enough. Speaking of catching the ball, we want to get to that, catching the ball. I've been guilty of this myself. I played receiver for my Division 3 team, my Division 4 team rather, I should say. And running before you actually catch the ball. You see it happen in the NFL, the CFL, FPF, anywhere pretty much, even in the park. I got this gain, I got this big catch, I got it, here comes a touchdown. Oh, I kind of left the ball behind. Not how you draw it up in your head, but more often than not, that happens.
That's it. So it's going to come. Just, repetitions. This is what a lot of kids are playing FPF Junior for, is to develop those ball skills, and you're only going to improve, but the confidence needs to be there. An example was in the Gators and Hawkeyes game. Gators receivers did have quite a few drops for their quarterback, Vincenzo Frank, but we could see that some of the kids, as they gained that confidence later in the game, they secured the catch, like you're saying, then make the play, guys. Don't worry about the 40-yard touchdown reception and scamper. Make the catch, that's what counts. Get the first down and take it off from there. So good stuff.
So in other words, what Rob is saying is don't Odell Beckham yourself. Yeah. Do not Odell Beckham Jr. yourself. Again, make the catch, look the ball in, and also try not to catch it for chest. Always, if you can, extend the arms, get the hands ready, do what you got to do.
Yeah. And when Brent drops balls in the adult league, I'll make sure to let you guys know.
Well, one a game, but hey, who's counting? The next thing is just obviously this is a family league. I mean, we have, again, the adult league and the kids league. So this goes with the players and coaches alike. Just keeping it classy, not swearing on the field. I mean, listen, it's football. I played football in FPF forever. I played tackle football for as long as I can remember as well. And you know what? Sometimes you make a mistake, you're frustrated, things happen. It's an emotional game. No matter what level of football you're playing, it's an emotional game. It is what it is. But just remember, when we, especially at FPF here, there's a lot of families out at the field, a lot of small kids, future FPF players. So, when you make a mistake or the referee makes a mistake or the other team does something you don't like, talk it out, talk to your teammates, talk to the referees, but you got to have class when you do it. Swearing on the field is not something we condone here at FPF at all.
Absolutely, and I think that's a segue to our next point, Brent, which is setting the example. I mean, you see some guys out there really making the league fun for people. An example that I saw that I was really impressed with was Coach Gaudamus Waminadan 2 weeks ago. His team was up big. the opposing team scored a touchdown. There was a flag on the play. He actually declined the penalty to allow the team to have that touchdown when they were otherwise going to be shut out. Just stuff like that. It's the spirit of the game, to have the kids enjoy it. On a player level, I'll use the Bruins again as an example. And there's so many good kids that are playing right now in this season in FPF Junior. But Will Leclerc, I noticed that this past week, there's a little guy on his team. His name is Malik Rosiclair, who's one of the smaller guys in FPF Junior's freshman division. And Will, rather than as the quarterback and leader of the team, rather than not worrying about the little guy and just focusing on his big play receivers, actually you can see him take the time before many plays to kind of coach Malik up and show him where he needs to stand. And just from a league organizer, from a coach's perspective, we love to see that. We love to see young kids take on a leadership role and try to help the kids that are younger than them or that maybe have less experience than them. And that's the type of stuff we love to see. And keep it up, Will, and other kids that are doing that. Leadership skills like that are very much appreciated by everyone here.
Oh, definitely. I mean, again, it's a league where we want to keep on increasing, obviously viewership. We want to keep on increasing the numbers of kids that come out every year. So setting examples and kind of teaching the younger kids when you're an older kid, that's definitely the way to do it. Moving on now, before we get into a preview of this week's upcoming games, we want to get into the playoff format. Now, Rob was telling me earlier today he put on the playoff format onto the website. Now, the parents at home and you guys, the players as well, can check out. Rob, if you want to give a bit more information on that.
Yeah, well, basically, Brent, there's 2 rounds of football for the varsity division since there's 4 teams. Everybody makes the playoffs in FPF Junior. So we'll see that the quarterfinal rounds for both the freshman and sophomore divisions will take place on Saturday, February 18th, and immediately the following day on the 19th, we'll have the semifinals for those same divisions. Varsity, actually, their semifinals will be played on the Saturday on the 18th as well. And then the following Sunday, February 26th, will be the big dance for all 3 divisions. It'll be held at Stade Bear in the afternoon. And we really have something fun planned for you guys. So stay tuned. It's really going to be awesome for the kids who make it to the finals. We're going to have live games and video content and all kinds of really cool stuff that the kids will enjoy if they make it that far. So just a little extra incentive to make it to the championship game this year.
All right, well, sounds good. I mean, we'll have to stay tuned, obviously, till the championship weekend comes around, but it sounds like a fun time. So now, guys, moving on to the games coming up this weekend. So we have a lot of, I don't want to say games that will shape the playoffs, but let's be honest here. A little bit of playoff implication.
Seeding,
seeding. At this point of the season, I think it's pretty safe to say that.
I should point out, Brent, that and what I didn't point out just a second ago is in both the freshman and sophomore division, the top 2 teams get a bye to the semifinals. So getting one of those byes could definitely help your chances to make it to the finals.
Definitely gives you a chance to rest up. I mean, you're not old like we are, but it gives you a chance to rest up, maybe practice a little bit, work on some things. Okay, so first game we have up, Rob, is the Seminoles taking on the Hawkeyes this Saturday at Loyola.
Yeah, should be a good game. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the Seminoles defense needs to work on limiting big plays. The Hawkeyes are known for the big plays, especially with Kalen Trepanier back under center and that famous deep ball of his. So I think that 2 kids that can really play a big role for the Seminoles are Dean and Giuliano. 2 bigger kids on the team, 2 really athletic kids that can match up with some of the size and speed of some of the kids on the Hawkeyes. So I look forward to seeing those 2 boys and how they can make some plays for the Seminoles this week.
Okay, and in the 2 o'clock spot at Loyola, we have the Musketeers taking on the Fighting Irish.
Another game that should be fun to watch. Kevin Naceris Payne, like we had said, I know his coach Vinny Golano, who's an excellent quarterback in his own right, has been working with him, trying to coach him up and just making short completions. So Kevin, if we can give you one bit of advice, listen to your coach, work on those short completions. You have some guys like Daniel Taylor, Lucas Fleet on your team that are super speedy kids. Just, getting the ball in those kids' hands in space could definitely create some big plays. So just sometimes simplifying it, not worrying about the deep ball, short throws, short completions, and I think that the Fighting Irish are destined to improve upon how things have been going so far.
Yeah, it should be a good one for sure. All right, next up we have the Cougars taking on the Wolverines.
Cougars-Wolverines. So the big question for the Wolverines, will their full roster be there? If all their kids are there, if we got Carter and Tank and Tristan and AJ and company, these kids have a really good roster. I think the Wolverines are a team that can surprise some people late in the season, just as we saw last year with the Longhorns and with the Buckeyes. So again, hopefully the roster can all make it out, and I think that they can maybe upset the Cougars in this game.
All right. And so for our first varsity game of the weekend, we have the Spartans taking on the Bulldogs, a battle of a bunch of former Hurricanes teammates.
The Hurricanes from last year in our inaugural season of FPF Junior. Look, Ryan Garber is going to be back for the Spartans this weekend. Ryan is hands down a terrific quarterback. He had a great season last year. Granted, he had a lot of good weapons on his team. A lot of those weapons are now on the Bulldogs this year. But Ryan's just got to simplify things. I know that Adam Maroos is arguably the best receiver in all of FPF Junior. But the Bulldogs are going to have the athletes to match up against him. So Ryan's got to just be smart like he usually is, distribute the ball around, take what the defense gives him, and I think the Spartans can put up some noise here against the Bulldogs.
All right, so going back to the sophomore division now, we have the Buckeyes taking on the Gators.
Should be a good game. Gators, we saw their confidence grow. Their receivers kind of grow more comfortable, as the game went on against the Hawkeyes last weekend. So I think that hopefully that can continue, and that Vincenzo Frank can get the ball into the kids' hands, make those plays, and hopefully they can punch in a few touchdowns this week, and maybe they're primed for an upset of the Buckeyes.
Speaking of upsets, we have the Bruins taking on the undefeated, the 4-0 Ducks. It looks like a tough one.
Yeah, that's a good game. 4-0 versus 3-1. You know what? An interesting matchup to look for in this game. The Bruins wide receiver Maurizio Mercuri Jr., who you know very well, Brent. He's a student at your school. Great kid, really big boy. So Maurizio, I think, grew like 6 or 7 inches since last year. But he's a big kid, and it's tough for some of the smaller receivers some of the smaller defenders to cover him. So I call on Jaden Michel and Jonah Edgehill of the Ducks, 2 bigger boys that are great athletes in their own right as well. They're going to need to play a key role in taking those big plays away from Maurizio Mercuri Jr. So I'll be looking for that matchup this weekend.
And what could be the matchup of the day, or the weekend rather, in the varsity division? We have the Longhorns, who I mentioned, 2-game winning streak right now, taking on the undefeated Horned Frogs. Yeah. Could be an upset in the making.
The Horned Frogs have looked absolutely tremendous this year, Brent. We spoke about Caleb Ferdinand. The list of athletes on that team just goes on. And obviously it all starts with Avery Lala at quarterback, who's just absolutely terrific. But what I'm looking for in this game is Shaylin Bentley and her terrific pass rush, put some pressure on Avery. We've seen the Longhorns defense maybe not have any guys stand out individually, but as a whole in that zone defense called by Dave Allen, they're doing a terrific job forcing turnovers combined with that pass rush. So we'll see how they do against this Horned Frogs offense, which has really been all systems go this season. So again, this could be a close game. I'm looking forward to catching it.
All right, and the final game of the weekend taking place at Kirkland at 5 p.m. is the Red Devils taking on the Hurricanes.
So the Red Devils have been red hot. Obviously, they started the season undefeated. They tied the Buckeyes last week. The Hurricanes, though, are coming on strong. They've won their last 2 games. Nicholas Masella has taken charge of this team at quarterback. I love the way they distribute the ball around. They really have a good nucleus of kids that can make plays, and they also have some size on this team. They have some big boys that are able to make plays in the red zone that can go up against the Red Devils, who are in their own right are quite a big team. So I think the Hurricanes match up well against the Red Devils, and I think that they can maybe pull off the upset in this game.
All right, well, that sounds pretty good. All these games should be must-watch games, so hopefully you guys, all the parents, all the players out there, when you're not playing or not watching, have a chance to get to another game to check it out. Okay, so that will do it this week for the FPF Junior Podcast. So I want to let you guys know that next week, obviously, we're heading into week 5 now. So the first half of the season now is in the rearview mirror. So what we will do next week, Rob and I, is we will have a mid-season look. Look at the best quarterback, the best receiver, the best rusher, the best coaches, and of course the best teams at the halfway point of the season. So we'll have that special edition for you guys next week on the podcast. Once again, thank you for tuning in. I'm Brent Bakken with the main man, Rob Campana. Once again, see you guys next Tuesday.